Hey everybody, this is Percy LaPointe, Lawn and Landscape Podcast, and in this episode today I'd like to discuss with you what to do when you lose a client or a customer. So there are a few things a rule of thumb that I like to try to follow whenever I lose a client or a customer, and it's simply just don't dwell on it. That's kind of the biggest thing. So point number one I'd like to make is don't dwell on losing customers. It's going to happen. What I do try to figure out though is, along with losing the customer, not dwelling on it, why did we lose the customer? So if it's something we did, is it price? Is it, you really have to drill down and figure out, is it something that my guys did? So for example, we got fired before many years ago for leaving the gate open, not once but twice. So at the same customer. If it's happening at this particular customer, it's happening across the board on other customers. So in this instance, I looked internally at our problem to fix the problem, or we would continue to lose customers for something so small. But in this particular case, their dogs got out. The customer was chasing the dogs down the road, and it became a big deal. So closing the gate is a small deal, but what happens when you leave the gate open could be a big deal. So I don't dwell on it, but I always try to drill down and find out exactly what the problem was, and did we do everything in our power to present the right solutions, because you will only become better for doing that. As a company, if I can take everything and say, okay, this is the reason one, this is the first reason why we lost this customer, this is the second reason, and remediate each one at a time, you become a very successful business with a lot of efficiencies. You'll find out, you'll learn to find those efficiencies whenever you find those deficits on the reason why you're getting fired. So I would highly recommend you kind of figure out what's going on, whether it was you or whether it was your guys. If it's another truck, you definitely want to find out why. And in speaking with the customer and your guys. So speaking with the customers, you may find out something totally different than what your guys are telling you. What your guys are saying may be that's one-sided. So it's very important that you talk to both the customer, because they may say, wait a minute, your guy sits here and does this, and this, and then you go talk to your guy, and the reason why they, is because of this. Two totally different stories. Now you have to figure out who's telling the truth. So I've always questioned I keep track of all the terminations, and I figure out, and I personally make the phone calls and figure out why, what, when, why, how, what could we have done better, and can we get another shot, that kind of thing. You'd be surprised at just calling the customer and listening to the termination reason and just letting them chew you out, whatever the case may be. Small, big, it doesn't matter. Sit there and listen, and more often than not, they're willing to give you another shot because you were there to lend an ear and figure out what was going on and try to correct it. So you can preserve a lot of these terminations or getting fired quite often by just calling that customer. Now, it may be something to where you just let it go. You would prefer that customer move on, because it can be the one or two customers out there, we all have them, that's just a pain in the butt, and there's so much administrative time behind managing this account. Move on. And so that brings me to the next point. Sometimes you want people to fire you almost, and I know that sounds bad, but if you're sitting there shaking your head, yep, you're right, you want those people to just fire you, because they're going to call you all the time. You just can't please them. And so what I do whenever we get terminated, I say, look, I know you terminated us, that's fine, that's perfectly fine, but here's what I want to do. I want to give you 3 recommendations for other lawn and landscape companies that you may be interested in hiring, and make the process easy, so that way they're less likely to talk bad about you. So we go above and beyond even when we're terminated to try to get them someone else. That way we reduce the risk that we may hit on them tarnishing our reputation, because trust me, when you get fired, they're going to tell more people than if you do a great job for a long period of time. They're more likely to tell people when situations go bad than when situations go good. So couple other key points I like to make is I would go out there. What the person says over the phone may be different than what you see. So I've driven to accounts or to those houses or businesses and said, okay, let me put my eyes on the job. Let me see what my guy's telling me and then what actually may be true, and go look at it myself. It warrants more than just a phone call. And I've been able to preserve and save or figure out what's going on by just putting my eyes on it. Wait a minute. You're asking for this, and this. We originally quoted this. That's why my guy's saying no. There's a misunderstanding there. So if there's a misunderstanding, you're available to clear it up, but it would have taken you putting your eyes on the job. And on the flip side, hey, my guys aren't doing such and such, you need to address it. It should be caught in your QCing of your yards, but maybe it's you've been having the account for a couple of years, and over the couple of years maybe you had different people on that truck to do that route, and it's altered or changed from what was originally part of the scope of work. So let me give an example. We did this property for about 3 years. It was actually me on the truck when I first took it over, and then I handed it over to the guys, and then they were managing it. Then it was another crew that took over because I had to allocate that crew to other properties with bigger yards. And so there was a strip of grass that was behind this fence. It was almost like an alleyway that were part of the property that wasn't done. So it got lost in translation. It wasn't on the notes of the job, and it just got lost in translation. Well, we've been charging this account the same price. He basically said, hey, look, by the time we heard about it, we just didn't see it, didn't know. We were terminated because we didn't catch it. It was, like I said, behind the fence. You would have to physically look over the fence to see if this piece was done or not, or obviously go through the gate. But you couldn't see it from the road or doing drive-bys, or you would have to physically walk the yard. So yes, we talked it out with this customer, but it can happen so quickly and easily that something you just didn't realize. It wasn't that we were trying to do anything different, the scope of work, so we made it right with the customer and then moved on. But this can happen to you in other scenarios. So don't dwell on it. Really just look past it. What the mentality that I like to keep in mind is, hey, look, I fill up my pipeline so full that if somebody drops off, I want to know why. I don't dwell on it. I want to know why. What's the reason? Is it something we need to change internally? If it's not something we need to change internally, it's customer based, then boom, let's roll. We have, luckily, we have the pipeline so full that we have other accounts that we're ready to fill that spot. So I don't even blink twice at it, to be honest with you. But I do want to know if it's something that needs to be addressed internally. So that's what I'm really looking for whenever we get terminated. So I hope that helps. It's just kind of a little motivational more than it is anything for you guys out there, because it will happen. And whenever I first got started, I needed every single account. So I really dwelled on it. Was my first mistake, and I really went above and beyond and really lost money on those accounts that are worth it and try to make it up. I did it, but on some of those accounts it really just wasn't worth it. I was actually beating a dead horse when it comes to that, and we should have just brought it out to the pasture and shot it, that kind of thing. Should have just been done with the relationship at that point. But I tried to hold on to everything I had. So don't go into it from the beginning of your business thinking you need to keep everything, because that will only hurt you instead of help you. I would basically move past it, fill up your pipeline, and get 5 more in that spot. Don't worry about that one. So I hope that helps. Again, this is Percy with Lawn and Landscape Supply.